Yeah. So when a company starts using Salesforce, the initial process we have already talked about. It's like they purchase licenses based on the requirement. They decide on the additions, and once the addition has been finalized, they place an order for the licenses and the number of users, and then they actually get the Salesforce, right? Now, the moment the licenses are ready and you have got your licenses from Salesforce.com and you've started working on Salesforce, what is the first thing that you would do? You will configure your Salesforce as per your requirement, right? So here configuration part is not very complex. It's pretty simple, but there are a few things which I just want you to understand and know. There are two configurations which I'm talking about. One is an individual's configuration, which every user will need to do for himself, right? So that's personal configuration, and one is company setup or company's configuration, right? Personal config is something that every user will need to do, okay? And company setup is what an administrator needs to do for the entire organization, right? So let's start on this. I want one of you to share your login ID and password with me, if anyone can. The developer edition login ID password, so that I
Sure, let me
use
share
that
it to you.
easily. Okay. You will need to give me the verification code. It has been sent to your mobile number.
Okay, give me a second.
All right, here it is. Thanks. Now, how do you understand which edition you are using? See, while you're creating a
Sorry?
free account, there are two options available for you. You can create a free trial for any of the editions. Okay,
Okay,
and where do we see that? The page on which we saw the pricing. You go to
right.
salesforce.com, then go to products, and then go to pricing, and we saw a list of all the products: professional,
Sure.
enterprise, unlimited, and right. So you can get a trial of any of those from that page. So below the details of the pricing, you will see a free trial kind of a button available there, right? So that allows you to get the free trial for any of the editions. For this thing, for your
The
developer
developer
edition,
edition?
you go to developer.salesforce.com and go to sign up from there, right?
Yeah, that's how I went in there.
Right. So if you're creating a, okay, now there are two things. Why would I create a free trial? if you just want to check how a professional edition looks and works, you can create a free trial. Let's say you
Right.
from your company you're trying to uh, evaluate professional edition because you guys are planning to buy a professional edition, so you get a free trial there, and it's usually a 15 days free trial for anything apart from enterprise and unlimited, and for enterprise and unlimited it's a 30 days trial, right? So if you're
Got it.
using a trial, usually you will have a message here which says how many days are remaining in your trial.
Actually, it was showing the other day. I think I went back in and then recreated it, I guess. Looks
Then you
like it.
must have created a professional edition earlier.
Okay.
I mean, from the Salesforce.com's website, there is an option of create a free trial right at the top right corner. That also creates a trial of professional edition, right? Uh,
Okay.
so you will get to see from here, right? Why I want you to understand this is because while you're dealing with a client, or maybe you have just been working on an org, make sure that you look into this, that which edition it is, right? Uh, and if it's not a trial, then how do you understand which edition it is? You just take your mouse here, you will get to see which edition it is. See, do you see developer edition written here? So if it's a
Yep.
developer edition, or it's an enterprise edition, or an unlimited edition, you will get to see from here, right? So
Got it.
the moment you start accessing a client's instance or something, you do not ask the client that, okay, fine, can you tell me which edition it is? You just go and see it here. Okay, just small thing. Right. So let's begin with the company setup, and the personal setup is not something very big. Or let me start with personal setup. That will be. So in personal setup, you just have simple things, small things to be done. Like you can edit the name, email, the username, and your nickname, and your time zone, which time zone you work in, and the language. So all these things can be set up for a personal user. Let's say the entire company has English as the default language, but for me, I want the language to, because I am Chinese and I want the language to be Chinese. Right. So that can be done. That you can do it as a part of your personal setup. So you can just go to just click on your name and then go to My Settings for any of the personal setup. You will have the option of doing the personal setup here. Go to personal information, you can change all your personal information like name, username and all that stuff. Go to change my password, you can change the password from here. Language and time zone can be edited from here. Alright. And one more important thing that you get to see here is a security token. So from personal setup, you have the option of accessing your security token as well.
When you say security token, is that the RSA setup or?
Let's set up, sorry. See, a security token is an additional password which is an alphanumeric key, system generated alphanumeric key, which Salesforce sends to you. And this security token can be used while you are accessing your Salesforce outside your trusted network, okay, or you are trying to access Salesforce um, from a standalone application. So Salesforce has a lot of standalone applications like Data Loader. Salesforce is on web, but there are a few apps which can be installed on your system and they work good with Salesforce. Alright. So if you are trying to access Salesforce from any of the standalone application means any application which can be installed on your desktop. Salesforce.com is not installed, right? It's a web-based application, but it is compatible with a lot of standalone applications like Salesforce for Outlook. Salesforce for Outlook is a standalone application which integrates your Outlook with your Salesforce.com. Like Data Loader. Data Loader is an application which is used for the data management, import export of data.
Is that an ETL tool?
Yes.
Okay.
Not completely an ETL, but yeah, from the perspective of Salesforce, yes. Um, then there can be something like a Salesforce offline, which is again a standalone application, which can be installed on your system, and that's used to access data of Salesforce while you're offline. Okay, so there are quite a few applications like this. So while you are accessing one of those applications, you need additional security password, which is security token, and this is something which is given by Salesforce. Or while you are accessing your Salesforce.com from a network which is not which is not a trusted network. Okay, I'll just talk about a trusted network. So I'll talk about that a little later. So that's what you can set from here. Right? For now, let's just understand that security token can be reset from here. And since it's a system generated, you just need to go and say reset security token. It will automatically reset your security token and send it to you through an email. All right. So you just don't need to create or define the security token on your own. You just need to reset it. Right. Okay. Now there is the company setup. What is that we do in the company setup? Company setup, you just need to go to setup menu, and then you can go to your company profile, and then you can go to company information. So this section is basically for the company setup. All right. So in company setup, one is the basic company information. Okay. Basic information of the company will include things like name, website, phone, um, name, website, phone, fax, address. So these are the basic info. You can just go to company information, and you will get to see all this basic information about the company. You can set it up here, the phone, fax. All right. Then comes the local info, which includes time zone. What time zone? What is the default time zone of your company? All right. What's the default language for your company, and what is the currency for your company? Which currency your company is using? Is it US dollars, or is it euros, or is it something else? Right. So these are the things that you need to set up for local info. So you can just click on edit here, and you will see the option of setting up the general info, which I just told you. It's like your company's name, address, phone, fax. Local info, which will be like what is the default location. So this default local, default language, and default time zone. Okay. This is all default language and default time zone, which means even if you set the language to English, some of the users can actually go and set it up to some other language. So if by default any user is created, the language assigned to that user will be English. But that user has the option to go and change it to some other language. Alright, and this is again something which is personal preference of the user.
So when a user does that, does it only impact that particular
Yes.
user's view of this
Yes.
application?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's this change is basically a low impact change. So Salesforce allows the user to do that, because that
Got
only thing that it's going to affect is what the way users see views the Salesforce screen. It's not making any change in the application or in the database, or nothing is changing. That's the reason that it's something which is allowed to the user, right? So again, this is one concept that you need to understand uh, from the admin point of view, primarily, that, or as a developer also, whenever we are actually allowing a user to perform certain changes, it's a Salesforce default functionality, but you will also start creating your applications and all that stuff. So you just have to figure out how much impact that particular thing, whatever the user is going to do, or whatever permission I'm allowing to the user, how much impact can it have on the overall organization. Okay, so we just try to figure out whether it's a low impact or it's a high impact thing. So most of the times, if it's a high impact functionality which we are allowing to the user, we try to restrict it to someone like an administrator or a developer or someone who is very experienced, something like that. Okay, that's again just for your knowledge. So this language setting, user can actually go and change it to his personal language, but that does not impact the overall organization in any ways. So that's the reason why it's allowed. Okay. And default time zone, again the same thing. There will be a default time zone set for the organization, and the user can have a different time zone. There can be a few users who are from a different time zone, and they can actually go and set it to their own time zone. And then there is currency. Okay. There is an option of having multiple currency also. So here you can actually pick a currency, USD. Usually, companies deal in single currency. Okay. But there will be a lot of companies who deal in multiple currencies also. So if there is, if you have a requirement of multiple currency, you should say allow support to activate multiple currencies. If you do this, I think the Salesforce support guys will activate the multiple currencies for you. I'm not very sure if they are going to do it for developer edition or not, but this is how it will work when you have actually purchased an edition. Now I do not know if your support team is actually going to go and see this request and going to, if they are going to update it or not. But if you are using an enterprise or unlimited edition, you can actually enable multiple currencies, right? So enabling multiple currencies will do what? It will allow you to use multiple currencies. So wherever there is a currency field, you will have the option of selecting which currency that field is. Like, so if you are entering a certain currency, let's say 80,000, Salesforce will ask you, so just before this field where you put the amount, here you will have a drop down which will show all the currencies. So if it's a USD, INR and Euros, then you will have that option of selecting which currency is that amount in, right? So that's it. I'm just telling you about this because you might not see the multiple currencies thing. You can just activate it and see if they actually allow you to have multiple currencies. Then there is users receive the Salesforce, whether you want to receive the newsletter or not. So just say yes or no, whatever you want, and just click on save. Fine. So this is what we need to set up in the company. Apart from this, the default language, default time zone has been set up. You will get to see all company license related or data related information also on this page. In this company information, you get to see how much data storage has been allowed to use. Out of that, how much is free and how much of file storage has been used and what is free, right? So for data storage, you see, we have just used 6% so far, and for file storage, we have used almost nothing. Okay, so this is where you can actually see your uh, data storage and current storage also, right? Okay, your company has an organization ID. Whatever organization you have created, that organization does have an organization ID. In Salesforce, every organization has an organization ID. So this is the organization ID. Alright,
Is that assigned by default?
by default. And all licenses information also lies here. Which all licenses you have, how many of them you have expired, how many of them you still have. See, Salesforce platform licenses, 3, remaining is 3. So none of them has been used.
What do all these types of users mean?
These are all licenses. Okay. So basically, it's not type of users. These are all licenses which you can buy. Okay, and they have specific functionalities. Right, like customer portal manager standard license will allow you to access the customer portal. That is, a customer portal manager custom will allow you to access the custom portal, but that's a custom license. Okay, which means you can make certain changes there. Okay, customer community login will allow your licensed user to access the customer community. Okay, so that's how it is. Out of all these licenses that we see here, this is the one. Salesforce license is the one which has all the functionalities, and that is what we are using. Okay, so this is a full license, Salesforce license. Rest all are like licenses for people who do not need full access. Like Force.com free, this comes for free. Chatter free, people with this license will only get to have access to Chatter. They cannot do anything else. They can only use Chatter. And see, Salesforce gives 5,000 licenses free for Chatter, right? So you can create licenses for people. They will be able to use the Chatter. They can chat using this functionality. Correct?
Yep.
Okay. So that's there. Now the next thing that you need to set up for your company is fiscal year. License information you can just see, you cannot do much there. Uh, the next thing that you can set up for your company is fiscal year. Okay, what is fiscal year? Financial year. Why do you think we need to set the fiscal year there in Salesforce? Whatever is
For
your company's
reporting?
fiscal year. For?
For reporting?
Yes. So we need to set up the fiscal year for reporting. Okay. So uh, set up the fiscal year for your company to do reporting. When you start, while we work on the reporting part, we will do that after a few sessions. So when we do the reporting part, you will see that there's an option of doing reporting based on the quarters or the fiscal years, current fiscal year, last fiscal year, right? So in that case, if you have defined the fiscal year properly, you can do reporting easily. Okay, so if you're asked to create a report for last fiscal quarter, you don't have to actually think and put the dates manually. That last fiscal year, fiscal quarter was when. So you don't actually need to think and hard code the date. You can just make it last fiscal year. Okay, so there are two advantages. One, you don't have to. Your end users don't need to think every time they're creating a report, and which means that there will be lesser errors also. Second advantage is that if you have this fiscal year option and you create a report, it will be kind of a dynamic thing which you're putting in the report. So it's not something static. So if you put static hard coded dates every time, every month, you'll have to go and change it, right? So what is the last fiscal quarter today will not be the last fiscal quarter after a month or maybe after 2 months, right? So that's how it is. So if you hard code the dates every time, you'll have to go and change the dates. So those are the advantages of fiscal year. So it's pretty simple. You just need to go and check uh, which month your fiscal year starts from. So usually, if it starts from April, just say April. If it starts in January, let's say January. There are two options of the fiscal year there. One is standard, one is custom. Standard means 4 quarters, 3 months per quarter. That's the most common fiscal year that we are aware of is a fiscal year which has 4 quarters, and each quarter has 3 months, right? But apart from this fiscal year, there are a few other structures of fiscal year also. Okay, so some financial schools actually talk about uh, some other fiscal year structure also. So that other fiscal year structure we don't need to do till the time we are not very sure. So if you do not have a 3 month quarter structure, then you should select a custom fiscal year. Alright. So if you read here, you will get to know. Salesforce provides flexible templates that you can customize to meet your needs, such as a template for a fiscal year that has 4 equal quarters, each with a 4-4-5 structure, 2 4-week month and a 5-week month. Okay, so some companies do have this kind of a structure also. Instead of 3 months, they actually have a quarter of 4-4-5. So first 2 months will have 4 weeks, 4 weeks means 28 days, and the third one will have 35 days. So this kind of a structure does not depend on the dates. It depends on number of days. The common fiscal year that we use is it starts from the first of the month. Okay. This structure fiscal year might start from a different date also. Okay. So those are complex finance concepts. Let's not get into that. The only thing is, in case you realize that the structure of the company that you are working for is different, then you can actually use this. Okay, but until unless you're not very sure, don't activate the custom fiscal year, because once it has been activated, it cannot be reversed. I mean, you cannot revert back. You cannot revert to the standard fiscal year, right? So which is a problem. Alright, so the fiscal year is there. Now the next thing that we can set up for a company is business hours. And what do you think? We need to set the business hours for the company. Business hours means what time the company works. From what time to what time you work. Why do you think that's important? Or why do you think we are going to set up this in Salesforce?
Meeting, setting up meetings and follow-ups.
Mm, okay. What else you think?
For publishing contact information, is that a part of it too?
User cannot access after the business hours.
No. Business hours is basically useful because it will help you to manage your escalations. How? In Salesforce, there is an option we saw the other day, that there is a tab called cases, which means customers can raise the complaints. Now, when there is a customer complaint, there has to be a timeline uh, within which you actually reply back to the customer, or within which timeline it needs to be resolved, right? So Salesforce allows you to have that escalation. So okay, so something which needs to be resolved within a certain defined time frame, if it is not done in that certain time frame, then what happens? Then it needs to be um, then ideally it should be escalated, right? So something which was supposed to be resolved within 2 days and it could not be resolved within 2 days, ideally it should be escalated, right? So while we're talking about escalations, again, you're not going to manually go and escalate things. So we need a process for escalating things. Now, this business hours so how do we do that? There is an option of defining escalation. Okay.
Do you mean SLS?
Yeah. So
Okay.
based on SLAs, if the uh, customer complaint has not been resolved, then it should get escalated, right? So Salesforce allows us to do auto escalations. Now, when we can do our auto escalations, the point that we see here is that these auto escalations will be uh, done depending on the business hours, right? You cannot escalate anything after 15 hours, because out of those 15 hours, you have to see how many hours your team was working, right? That's important. So if a case comes in at 5 p.m. today, that case cannot be escalated tomorrow morning, because there was no one who was working in the night, right? So that's the reason business hours are defined, so that escalation rules can be associated with these business hours to calculate the correct number of hours which have passed. Okay, so this is going to define your business hours. Select the days and hours that your support team is available. These hours, when associated with escalation rules, determine the time at which cases can escalate. Got it? And you can define multiple business hours. Let's say you have a support team sitting in India, there is another support team which sits in Canada, so you can define different business hours. And let's say the support team in India is working for 16 hours on a day, and the support team in Canada works for 12 hours in a day. You can define it according to that, and escalations for that team will happen based on the business hours that you have defined for that team. Got it? Okay. The next thing that we talked here is holidays. What is holidays, and why do you think holidays are important?
Similar to what you just described, for the customers to know when the business is open.
Right. So holidays are, it's not for the customers to know when it was open, because customers will anyhow not have access to your Salesforce on, but it's for the escalation rule to understand which all days should be avoided while you're calculating the escalation time, right? So holidays are dates and times at which business hours are suspended. Okay. So it will not take those days into consideration. Alright, so my cases should not get escalated on a Saturday or Sunday because the team is not there. So all your recurring holidays as well as all those one-time holidays need to be mentioned here. So you can just go to me and define your holiday. So if it's a Saturday Sunday holiday, just mention it that it's a weekly holiday and it's on Sunday and it's on Saturday. So if the company does not work on Saturday Sunday, just mention it. If there is some other holiday also, that also needs to be defined so that those days are not counted for the escalation. Fine. So that's there. Hope that is clear. Question or doubt, please let me know. We are all okay on that? Great.
Yep.
Okay. Now, the next thing that we will talk is the next concept that we're going to talk about is the security and identity configuration. Security and identity configuration. What do I mean with this security and identity thing? Security and identity configuration basically is the concept where you can uh, define or you can make your Salesforce.com org understand how does it identify the users and how does it actually understand whether the user is a correct user or not. Right? So there are two things here. First concept is see when a user is trying to log in. When a user is logging in, what do you have to understand? You have to check whether it's the correct user or not. I mean, not you basically. Salesforce needs to make sure it's the correct user or not, right? Because it's on cloud and security is always, and it has always been a bit of a concern for companies. All right. So security is always a concern, and it has been a concern for the companies, right? So when a user is logging in, what basically happens is that particular user needs to be, so Salesforce.com basically needs to check whether he is the correct user or not. And companies can actually use some of the options for this, right? To make sure that people are, the person who's logging in is the correct user and he is logging in with the correct intention or with the correct purpose, right? So there are two things which you can do to restrict your users. When you can restrict the users by time, okay? So you can restrict your users to log in at a certain time. That people, the users will be able to log in from 9 to 6, and anyone will not be allowed to log in after 6. Second is you can restrict users by IP address. Alright. So you can restrict users by time, you can restrict users by IP address. That's it. Right. So these are two options which Salesforce allows you to make sure that the correct people are using it from the correct location and the correct time. Alright. So how do we restrict users by time and IP address? This is something which we will discuss later. I mean, how do we actually put these restrictions on the users? This is something which we will discuss after a few more sessions once we talk about profiles. I just want you to understand this concept for now, that these are two restrictions which you can put on your users. Now, the process that we are going to understand is what kind of a security check happens before a user actually logs in into the system. So it's a very simple process. The user tries to log in. Salesforce performs a time check. Okay. If this time check fails, access is denied. Okay. So whenever a user tries to log in, Salesforce will go and check if the administrator has put a time restriction on that user or not. If the time check fails, the access for that user is denied. So user is straight away denied access, and it's said that you cannot log in because you are not permitted to log in at this time. Okay. The next level of check which happens is the IP check. Okay. So if it fails, then the access is denied. If it does not fail, then it goes to the next level of check, which is IP address. If IP address check gets cleared, then login is allowed. But if it fails, even if it fails, the user still has another options available. Okay, even if the IP check fails, Salesforce does not deny access straight away. It goes and performs a cookies check. Okay, what is this cookies check? Cookies check is basically it will go and check in your browsing history that whether you are trying to log in from that particular IP address uh, for a second time. Have you already logged in from that IP address? It will go and check it in the cookies browsing history. Okay, if this gets cleared, then login is allowed. But even if this also fails, if this fails, then Salesforce gives you the option of getting the verification code. You are asked to get the activation code. So today only when Arvind you shared your login ID with me, it asked me for the activation code. So this is what actually it was trying to do. This is the process it was trying to follow. It saw that I'm trying to I'm trying to log in from this IP address and this location for the first time. tomorrow when I try to log in using your account, it will not ask me for the activation code, right? Because now
So,
this user has already logged in from there.
sure. Ajit, but what about, you know, some companies who have sensitive data that don't allow access to this application from outside the company network? Isn't that one of the reasons why the IP check is enforced?
Yes, right. That's correct.
So in that case, this is basically an override for that check, or does the admin have the access to deny the rest of the authentications?
You can deny it, but while you are actually allowing someone to access using the activation code, you are trying to make sure that the correct user is doing it, and you are aware of that, right? Like who accessed, and that particular user is taking the responsibility of logging in from there, right? So the basic reason for Salesforce being a little flexible on this side is because the core purpose of Salesforce is that it's on cloud and it can be accessed from anywhere, right? If it's very strict on that part, then the purpose is not solved. However, having said that, you can actually make your security a lot more stricter, and people outside that IP address will not be able to uh, access at all. So that can also be done. Right?
Got it.
So that can be enforced. But usually, this activation code wala thing is something which companies allow the users to do, right? So this is the process. All right. So time check is something which will not let you go any further. If that fails, you cannot move any further. But yeah, if your IP check is somehow failed, you are allowed to go. It goes to the cookies check and finds if you have already logged in from that location. If that does not work, then it allows you to get the activation code on your mobile, registered mobile or email, and then log in. Now, if you know that you are logging in from a location which is not trusted, okay, then instead of all this process, you can also do one thing. You can use your security token along with the password. All right. If you use your security token along with the password, then it will straight away allow you to log in. Then it does not go here. So if you use your security token, then security token is used login cloud here only. Okay. So sometimes it may happen that you know that you are actually going to log in from a location, maybe a client location or somewhere, and you uh, know that it's not trusted location. But you have the security token. What you can do is you can combine your security token along with the password, and you will be allowed to log in from there without getting into all these steps. So no cookies check, no activation code, nothing required. Fine. But security token can only help you for the IP address. It cannot help you for the time check. So time restriction is there, and that does not get affected by whether you're providing security token or not. Clear on this? So this is the process it follows. Right.